Okay, let's say you have two virtual networks in Azure and you want to be able to communicate between them. Well, there's two different ways we can do this. One of them is using virtual network peering, and that's a pretty easy, straightforward way of doing it. The other way is we can do it using a VPN. Big difference between the two. If you're using virtual network peering, that network peering is going to send traffic between the two virtual networks across the Microsoft backbone network. And if you do the VPN, then that traffic is going to cross the internet. It'll be encrypted, but it'll cross the internet. So peering, a little easier to set up, I think. It's a little easier to set up, and it keeps traffic a little isolated from the internet. So that might be something we want to consider. So let me walk you through how to do that. Now, as you know, I'm in my demonstrations resource group, and I have a virtual network set up. We set that up in a previous video. I'm going to go ahead and set up another virtual network. But before I do, I want to look at this one, and I want to see what its address range is. So this is 172.16.0.0/16. So when I set up peering, or when I set up my second network to be able to peer between the two, I want to make sure it doesn't overlap this address space. So from demonstrations, I want to add a new resource. So I'm going to click create. And here I can search for virtual network. And it should find for me right here. So here's a virtual network gateway. That's not what I want. I want to use a virtual network. So I'm going to come here and I'm going to create a virtual network. This is going to put it in demonstrations by default. And I'm going to call this Demo Network 2. And then click Next. And we've already walked through this before in a previous video, so I'm not going to go through a whole lot of it here, except I do want to show you that I want to delete this address space. I want to add a new one for 172.16.17.0.0/16. Let me try that again. 172.17.0.0. That'll make way more sense. There we go. And then we're going to, so that gives us our address space. We're going to add a subnet to that. And this will be our default network for this. And I'm just going to call this default 2. Oh, subnet purpose. Let me get to the name. I'm going to call it default 2 just so that I know I'm on my second network. And my subnet is going to be the first /24 address space of this new address range. And I'm good with that, so I'm going to click add, and then tags, and then review and create. And the idea here is just to give me something to peer to. So I'm going to go ahead and click create, and that should create my virtual network. So deployment is in progress. It'll take it a minute here. It always does when we're creating resources in Azure, but on the other hand, it's way easier than doing them manually. So I'm going to go back. Let me go home, go back to my resource groups, and here in my demonstrations resource group, now I should have Demo Virtual Network and Demo Network 2. All right, I want to create a peering connection between those because I want resources in my Demo Virtual Network to be able to connect to resources in my Demo Virtual or Demo Network 2. And so I need to create a peering connection so they can. So if you visualize this as a physical network, imagine that these are all these devices are connected to one switch. All these devices are connected to one switch. They're in separate IP address ranges. Now I need to create a connection between my two switches. That's what network peering is. So I'm going to go to my Demo Virtual Network. And right here under my settings, down here is where my peerings are. And I'm going to create a peering. Now, I already have one that I've created to another network. Not a big deal. I can set up multiple network peerings. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click Add, and I'm going to give this a remote peering link name. So this is going to be my demo to demo peer. Resource Manager deployment model is going to be fine. I want to connect this to, and this is the same subscription. Now, I can connect to virtual networks in the same resource group, in different resource groups, in the same subscription, in different subscriptions. I can get pretty extensive in what I can do here. So I want to connect this to demo network 2. So I'm going to select that right here. Now you'll notice right here we've got some default options. So remote virtual network and allow demo 2 network to access the demo virtual network. Now, if I uncheck this, notice we have some other settings. And if I uncheck this, those would actually go away. Resources in demo 2 will not be able to communicate with demo virtual network. Okay, which is a little problematic. I do want it to go both ways, so I'm going to make sure that's selected. And then I'm going to come down. Now, some of these other options have to do with forwarded traffic. So let's say I have traffic that comes into demo. Do I want it to be able to go to demo 2 and vice versa? I don't, so I'm going to go ahead and leave those unchecked. But I do need to set, because this can create both sides of the peering link at the same time. And that's kind of what's cool about this, because I am in my same subscription, in the same tenant, it'll do both of them for me automatically. If I'm trying to link to somebody in another tenant that I don't have rights to, then I need them to give me, I think it's network contributor rights. It'll give you the right to go ahead and do it. So I'm going to create a peering link, and I'm just going to give it the same name, demo to demo peer. So demo to demo peer. And again, I don't want anything to be transitive, so I'm just going to leave this one checked. And remember, on all of these, if you hover over the information button, it will tell you a little bit more about it. And it will explain some of that traffic coming in from outside this network. Do I want to forward it to the next one? So when I'm happy with it, it's pretty simple, right? I just click add. And now it's adding my virtual network peering, but notice it tells me that twice. And that's because we're doing it on both sides. So we'll look at this, and now I have a demo to demo peer. And notice, I'm going to go ahead and close those. I'm on my demo virtual network, and I have a demo to demo peer, and its link is to demo network 2. And then this right here, let me expand that so you can see what's disabled here. It's the demo network gateway or router server. So I'm going to click on my demo network 2, and it's going to take me to, now I'm on demo network 2. And if I go to peerings, you'll see I do have a peering back to the demo virtual network. Okay, pretty straightforward, right? Now, at this point, if I have resources in demo network, they should be able to connect to resources in my demo network too. So both of these now can communicate with each other. Now, that they can communicate. So what we have is basic routing between the two. If we're looking at it from like a physical network viewpoint, that's essentially what we've created, is a basic router between the two. And we're not necessarily applying any security here, but remember, security is applied at the network interface level and then in the operating system level as well. So just because you've created connection between the two virtual networks does not mean that everybody can immediately start communicating. You need to make sure that you allow permissions for them to go ahead and begin communicating as well. So that's setting up virtual network peering. It's a pretty straightforward process, but it does give us some very nice flexibility when we are working with multiple virtual networks.